Hey there. Today I want to talk through one of the ways that I begin the school year. This is a day one lesson. I use this with my junior classes. And this is one of the lessons that, for me, comes from a place of believing in the value of diving into content. Like, I want students to walk out of that first day being like, oh, this is what we're going to do in here. Like, we'll get to the syllabus stuff. We'll get to some procedures. We'll get to some diagnostics, even. I just want that first day to be interactive, but also in a way that elevates what the content of the class can be and the culture of the class can be, and also gives me a little snapshot into who these students are that we're going to be working with over the year. So, again, you can see the opening slide. I'm just going to walk you through this slide deck. The link and resources are provided in this post. So let's get into it. So right off the bat, you've got kind of a quick agenda. You got the essential question, one that we'll circle back to many times throughout the course. Three parts where they do a brainstorm with an index card that's probably sitting on their desks, or they pick up as they walk in. We read a poem. It's always a fun little reaction from students that they're reading a poem day one. And then we get to that application that I'll talk about at the end. So for the brainstorm, I really want them to think about a place. So they write down a place that's meaningful to them in the past, the present. The more specific, the better. And then they're going to write down 5 specific details about that place. Like, they want a picture in their head and think about it. Can be a lot of imagery. It can be not just what you can see, but also sounds, like feeling. Really think about those sensory details. What's important about that place? What makes it unique to them? What do they remember about it? I walk through my own example. Obviously, like, I would hope if you use this that you created your own example. I talk about this neighborhood ravine in the forest. And then to go one step further, they highlight or circle 2 details that they find incredibly important and add more about them. So they add 2 things about each of these details. I do this I model this again. I think the modeling is really important throughout this lesson and really throughout any lesson, any course. So I talk about how, like, the rope swing was weathered and snake-like, and it would be like, I'd be swaying. I was on a swaying branch over this ravine, and the sticker bushes didn't have blackberries most of the year, so they weren't really producing anything. And then I'd have like scratches emblazoned, I like that word, on the shins and arms of neighborhood kids. So I leave this on the board. They keep working. And then we get to a partner share. And this is core to our class, but like setting this culture early on, where partner A, they're set in partners typically that first day, says, you give them the model. They get 30 seconds to share one of their details, if not other details. And then after 30 seconds, stop, move to the second partner, partner B, and we'll do this interchangeably throughout this lesson. Going on to, then we have a sticky note in our class. You could do this with any scrap paper. I notice, I wonder, I realize, something we use frequently in our course and something that's going to be a big part of our course systems that I want to model for them. We're about 8 to 10 minutes into the lesson at this point, and we're going to use this system to read through a poem 3 times. So the poem's by Ezra Pound. It is a very classic poem, but it's also a very short poem. In a station of the metro from 1913, more than 100 years ago, the apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. So I read it, and I just have them write down one word that stands out to them and why it resonates with them. I just jot down a quick reason why. Again, we go to partner B this time, partner A. I then call on random people to tell me the word. We just kind of notice some things, and then we read it again. Read number 2. What do you wonder? So what's a question you have, something you want to learn more, and really to push them, not just definition. Sometimes you can just tell them, hey, here's what apparition means. Maybe here's what a bow is, the metro, and then take that off the board and then ask them wondering, like, why is this? Why did the author choose this? What about this? And then have them again sharing with their partners what that question was, what that wondering was. And then once you've done that, I feel like it gives you that permission, not like a vindictive cold call culture that I've seen cold calls be really, negative, but like this idea that everyone's voice matters. And I'm going to call on everyone as much as possible to get different ideas in. You had a chance to write it down. You had a chance to share with your partner. I'm just asking you to share out one of those things briefly. I try to get a lot of different people. It also helps me practice names early on. So that's round 2. We go one more time, and I'm kind of sprinkling in some information to help them get to that point of understanding as I'm responding to their questions. Read number 3. What do they realize? and what's something maybe in one word, what is this poem about? We have that conversation as a class, talking about just the idea in general of like how disconnected we can feel in society, right? Like how we can be almost invisible to each other, and like we want to have the opposite of that in our classroom community. So that gets through the poem, and then we shift gears to, sometimes I have time, so I go over some facts about the poem. This is a slide that I cut if I'm short on time, so just a little strategic move as a teacher and maneuvering through this lesson. And then we go back to that index card. So they had done that brainstorm, they had set it aside. What are we going to use this for? And now I'm going to ask them to flip it over, and they are going to write their own 2-line, or I give them a 3rd line if they'd like, poem. They're going to come up with a title. They will have their name and period. And then I want them at the end to tell me a choice of a word or something they did in their poem and why they're going to highlight it. So I model that for them. I walk them through my own sample. So here was my brainstorm from earlier in the lesson. I've got now my index card with sticker bush scarred shins, leering from a twisting tenuous branch. The weathered rope swings, sways, waiting to exchange one fear for another. And I like that 3rd line, kind of pat myself on the back for that one. And then a choice that I made. I use the literary technique. This is a high performing group of juniors, but you don't have to, you can come up with your own poem, hopefully, if you're doing this with your own class. Maybe have just like a word choice right there. And then I put the poem back here and I say, hey, go for it. I set some background music. They get 5-7 minutes to write. So this is their chance to, I always make the joke. I've used it for over a decade now that, hey, day 1 of school, your parents ask you, what did you do? Well, I read this syllabus. I listened to this syllabus. Oh, and I wrote a poem. Like, hey, you could be the class where they wrote a poem. And then having a chance. And again, this is something that sometimes I don't have enough time, but I try to, that everyone's going to say what their name is and what the title of their poem is. Not the whole poem, just the title. We all share it out. They hand the index cards to me as they go in. This is just an activity that, in my mind, just to give a little bit of some reasoning for it, sets the stage for what it means to really be a class where we're not just interpreting literature, but we're doing it collaboratively. That sometimes you read things the first time and don't get that, but also that your voice matters. Not just that me calling on you, but your writing matters, and that we can mimic and borrow from great writers like from this poem. And then we can use it to tell our own story, which is a core value of our class. And why I believe in this lesson so much as the first lesson is I feel like it sets a foundation for what we're going to do in this classroom space the rest of the year. I love it. And I love teaching poetry, but I also just really appreciate what this lesson can do to set the stage for a classroom for the rest of the year. You are welcome to use it and edit it, and let me know if you have questions about it. There's many other poems that you could use, but this one's really short and therefore really helpful, but also offers that narrative writing activity at the end. So hopefully it's helpful. If you have questions, let me know. And as always, appreciate your feedback, and take care.